And welcome to the California Wealth Warrior podcast with Ray Olmo. Ray, it's great to be with you. This is your inaugural podcast, your first one. So, welcome to the podcasting world.
It is beyond exciting. We've been working on this, for probably a good 6 months to make sure that the platform is just stellar. And we're gonna show people what California is really about.
Well, it does beg the first question because we want to get to know you a little bit here. And it does beg the question. You talked about working on this for 6 months. Why are you investing your energy in this podcast project?
Well, it's been kind of the perfect storm, the culmination of things really kind of forged really with COVID and, being kind of locked in and then thinking about things and seeing the exodus from California and then just talking to my peers. So the California Wealth Warriors isn't about Ray Olmo. It's about the people, the network that I've forged over 35 years in the business. And when I really try to reach out with everybody, when we were all locked up, we started having these video exchanges, these Zoom meetings, and it just started getting more and more into, hey, you need to do a podcast. You need to do a podcast, and we need to tell a story. And again, you're going to meet some real powerhouse people that I rely on, that I'm just beyond blessed to get to know. And they're people that I resource, that I rely on, and Californians don't know. And then what was happening along the way is I was also just discovering this void, this again with the exodus of people leaving, and we know it's one of two things financially. It's lawsuits. Okay, we're the number one judicial hellhole. We've been labeled that way for nearly a decade. Okay, and then it's taxes. And again, my team and I scratch our heads, and when people are leaving because of those two main reasons. Listen, we can't stop the fires, the floods, and maybe we can help with the homeless. I don't know. We need a good shot there, but financially, we're like, they just don't have the resources, And then I started confronting people in certain venues. Bill, I sit on the board for a golf betting app. Right. And we're going to talk about that. We'll have Tom Naramore on. He's a Chico buddy of mine, and it's a stellar company. And so I have the luxury of getting to go all these awesome little golf courses for free. And it didn't matter where I was, okay, in California, down south, up here. Tahoe has some of the most magnanimous courses in the world. It's just they're incredible. Every time in the 19th hole, you know how it goes. Guys show up, gals, and they start counting their monies and their bets, and they're having their cocktails, and it's a big social gathering. And every time I would notice there would be a conversation, and I would bet it was literally every 19th hole. Oh yeah, I'm leaving to Idaho. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go move to Florida. I'm gonna move to Texas. I'm gonna move to Incline Village in Nevada. And I'm like, good luck with that one. But it got to the point where I started, started insinuating myself into these conversations. I'm like, hey, nice to meet you. And I overheard you're going to Idaho. Why? Oh, well, taxes. And I'm like, taxes? Okay. So, well, yeah, I'm getting killed. And okay, what do you do? Well, I'm a business owner. I said, you're leaving because of taxes when you're a business owner. I said, do you not know that you can do these things? They looked at me like I was crazy. Okay. So it became this contrarian, and I just started becoming more and more arguing the case. And we're going to talk about my heritage here. I'm not leaving. I'll never leave. My heritage, 3 generations on both my wife's and my family's side. Good luck. And I don't care what the tax rate is, because we can solve that problem. We can definitely solve I guess you'd call it asset protection problem quite easily. We're going to talk about that actually in the next podcast. But again, it just became this precipice. And then, okay, when I called you guys, there was a trigger for me. And it was this kid, this rancher's kid. Okay.
Yeah.
California is, fifth largest economy in the world, maybe going to fourth. But this kid I saw in a pot, or it was like a forum, for ranchers, and he goes, I don't want, this kid's like 10, 12 years old. I don't want to leave. My friends are here. I love it here. I love being a California rancher. And I go, I love this kid. And that was really the trigger for me. We actually need to find that video I said right when we first met about 6 months ago.
I love that. That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
I'd love to have that kid on here. He really inspired me to do this. So that was kind of the trigger. And then then that actually, I started thinking about it, and I go, who's my hot list? And I went in within minutes. I listed about 80 people. They're mostly the advisors, and we're going to talk about how we've gotten to know these people and how we watch them, what we've learned from them. Okay, they're business owners, successful entrepreneurs. We want their perspective as well on what they do. But it takes a village. I don't know if that's a cliche, but California Wealth Warriors is kind of that club where we are a huge resource. And again, the problem is California is so mass, again, is fifth largest economy. People don't have the resources. Okay. We are trust CFO. We deal with trust. And you're going to quickly learn, why do the wealthy have trust? Okay. It's because it's a whole new world, and the tax influence and the protection against lawsuits and litigation, frivolous lawsuits. Okay.
Right.
We're going to teach people that this isn't about trying to evade creditors. This is about trying to avoid the extortion of lawsuits. Okay. And I got story after story for that. At any rate, so that's how this kind of came to be. And then again, I really looked at my heritage, and we wanted to, my wife and I, that wanted to honor that. We have a great story. I can't,
well, let's get into your story. I mean, you talk about wanting to stay there because you're a lifelong Californian and you've got a history there, and you go back a couple of 3 or 4 generations. So give me your story. Why? I mean, I lived in California at one point. It's
That's
a
right, yeah.
beautiful, beautiful place to be.
I think we
I
kicked you
couldn't get
out.
out of it fast enough, though, Ray.
No, I said we kicked you out.
I left before you could
look,
kick me out. I'm sorry.
So a funny story is, when you talk to these guys on the 19th hole, you become friends quite fast, no matter where
Right.
you are. You pal up and you start busting each other's chops. And I would always say, you said, "Oh, you're leaving? Yeah, get the hell out, because you're jamming up my golf game, man. You're slowing us up." Anyways, it's all fun.
So why do you want to be there? I mean, what let's talk about the connection. Let's talk about family first and then get into work. But how long's your family been there?
We both, my wife's side and my side, are 3 generations Californians. My wife's is from Italy, and I'll go through that. They are farming, ranching, for those 3 generations here in California.
Yeah.
Down in the Delta, at about 2,000 acres. I don't know if you can see behind me. There's
I can. I got 2 ladies on the wall behind you.
yeah, but before that, that's Gemignani Ranch asparagus.
Oh, okay.
So that thing there is about 75 years old. And so they did alfalfa and wheat and asparagus and a whole slew of different things. And they were ranchers. And up until this generation, when her dad, Richie, unfortunately, has Alzheimer's. And so that kind of ended it. We no longer have that ranch. My family has ranches on their side, and we'll talk about that. But so we were part of we were part of the backbone of building California into what it is, the economic, monstrosity that it is. And I want to continue on best we can. I'm still the trustee for about 1,000 acres in Northern California. Love it, and fight tooth and nail to try to keep the integrity of it. Yeah.
So what's your work history?
Okay,
Your family were ranchers and farmers.
Yeah, well, so I shared with about Yvette's. That's Yvette's grandmother, Lillian.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And Lillian is 102, never been sick a day in her life.
Wow.
She plays skippo and cards with the gals, and she cheats and wins. Okay. And other than her hearing, I mean, it's just incredible. She's just a phenomenal woman, and she is funnier than hell too. So, just to be blessed with someone like that, and that at all costs, we try to get down and see her, and we're going to this next week, for early Christmas and whatnot. But anyway, so that's that side. My side has, on both my mom's and my dad's side, has interesting story. My dad's side, we had the Olmo ranches. Probably the most prominent is behind me on this side is Dr. Harold Olmo. Okay.
He's the guy on the desk there.
He is holding up the grapes. He's my pseudo grandfather. My dad's dad died when he was young, and so Harold and his brother Chris, my dad's uncles, raised my dad. So
Okay.
he's a grandfather to us. And so Harold was a professor at University of California, Davis,
Okay.
for eons. You can look him up. He's labeled the Indiana Jones of viticulture. He traveled the world. He created what were called the Olmo grapes, and he put the California Cabernet on the global map.
Wow.
There's article after article. Great man, extremely quiet, and gosh, I remember Bill was racing around as a kid over at the ranch, in Davis, and I'm running around this little tyke, and I'm like, who are all these old farts? Get out of my way, old men, when they're having stuff. Well, it's Robert Mondavi and the Gallo brothers, and when we look back, I'm like, oh my God, it's the who's who of grapes, So he really helped craft the wine industry in California. I actually have the last box of Villa Olmo grapes from 1987, and I hold the last bottles. They're non-drinkable, but they're certainly great history. So that's just, again, part of helping, the contribution to California on my dad's side.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess if we shift to mom's side, we have Wilma Lawton, and she and my grandfather, and this is going to lead to why I'm doing what I'm doing. Okay. She inherited what is now Oroville Hospital. So they lived up in Oroville, California, Northern California.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Up by Chico, Oroville Lake. And they had ranches up there, fruit. And they owned, the hospital. And then later on in the, I think late 50s, 60s, they sold it. And it became what it is now as a hospital. It was actually a nursing facility. And so my grandmother's mom was the nurse. And so that started, and then my grandparents, they had the ranches. They owned a hotel in Mexico, Zihuatanejo. Okay, of all things, they're quite well off. And so what happened was, I went to Chico State. I was born in San Francisco, St. Mary's Hospital. Okay. I went to USF my first year in college, decided I didn't want to be in the city, went to Chico with one of my best friends, who's still one of my best friends, John. We were roommates for 4 years, just had a blast. This is in the era when Chico was #1 party school, and I got a picture of me in Playboy magazine.
I wasn't going to say that, Ray, but I'm sitting here thinking, Chico, isn't that like a party kind of school?
It was phenomenal times. Yeah, every student was required to study partying 101. Now it was great times, but times have changed, So yeah, went to Chico. We call it the Harvard of the West, jokingly. Right? There
we go.
Yeah, so got my little Chico State alumni mug there, and so got into finance, was finance major, got into finance, thought I was going to be a stock guy. Actually, in Chico, I worked for a pension administration firm, Ken Cowan and Associates. He's long past.
Oh,
So I was
okay.
actually doing retirement plan administration for 35 years, when 401ks were in their infancy. We were doing on a green pad with a pencil and numbers and all that stuff. So I actually did that in college, and then and then got a job doing that right out of college, and then got my securities license and insurance license, and thought I was going to be doing all that stuff. And there was a turn of events. My grandparents passed away within a couple of years, and when I talk to people that know estate planning, I said, you know what happened? And they do. They said, yeah, the estate tax exemption was only like $600,000 then. Okay. Well, they were, I guess you'd call them, not to be braggadocious, I guess they were kind of mega wealthy. Okay.
Yeah.
With everything that they did, and lo and behold, I got a call one day from my mom crying, what is estate taxes? And I didn't know. And it was a quick punch in the gut. And I had to go and pull together. I was the only one that knowing finance, and so I had to go and pull together a team, mostly attorneys, accountants. It was a bloodbath. Okay, it took us 10 years, me 10 years to pay off the IRS. There's a loan that estate planners know. It's 10 years at 7%, and I fought every creditor that wanted, the assets on a fire sale, the IRS, you name it. It was a nightmare. And I spent 4 years doing that, and said, this just isn't right. And actually, what happened during that time, okay, there were some bad partners that we were in litigation with, and there's some good partners among my grandparents. And they said, what the heck happened? I said, this is what happened. I told them, and they said, well, what? We don't want that to happen to us. And can you help us? And slowly and surely, I started building, this relationship where I'd be the trustee and help them get their planning in order. That's kind of how this all started. It was, when people have these planners out there and they're academics and they read these things, and clients going to kind of go, yeah, okay, yeah, maybe you scare me. Well, I'll tell you the real what happened, and it'll scare the hell out of you. Okay, so
I mean, I got to ask before you go on, did it lead to a dissolution of the entire state of your grandparents, or I mean, that because it sounds like a disaster.
Yeah, we lost nearly 80% of the estate net. And
wow.
the one that hurt, I tell the story, is it's so funny. My wife and I would, when we were first, we're dating, about to get married. My wife was just like, your grandma's really eccentric, man. She's kind of crazy. And because she would tell these stories, right? And lo and behold, one Christmas, she goes and grandma's kind of feisty. Maybe she had a glass of wine or something. And she goes, oh, Yvette, come here. She opens up this picture portfolio, and she starts opening these things. And there's a picture of my grandma sitting on Dean Martin's lap, spilling her martini in the Rat Pack. Okay. Well, they were big in Lake Tahoe. They were one of the first investors in the Calneva Lodge, which is no longer around. But it was back then when Lake Tahoe was a small group of people, and they all knew each other. And they had 5 acres on the lake, 2 houses, okay, main house, guest house, 2 docks with about 500 feet of shoreline.
Sweet.
If anybody knows where West Lakeshore Drive is, it kind of goes and gets close, and then all the property is there on the lake on the west side. Well, if you were to value that property, I know the property, it's been split, and if you were to value it now, it's probably worth about $60 million.
Whoa, that's beautiful. Wow.
Well,
wow.
Yeah, we had to sell it to pay the taxes. So the government has, in essence, that property from it. So I wouldn't be sitting here now if we still had that property. Yeah. But again, it's a huge pain. We don't talk about it at Christmas. It just destroys everybody. But I think, I guess what all this is about is forging my path. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
this is my purpose. And so I tell the stories. I told the story yesterday to a new client. I don't hold back. I want them to know the reality of these things. And I think it hits up close to home when they know that their advisor has truly experienced these things, because some of the stuff I share, even attorneys and the CPAs don't really know the true underpinnings of
Mm.
things when they actually happen. What will the creditors do? They know, oh, they're going to sue you. Yeah. Well, how and what are the holes they're going to try to get into? And that's as an administrator, we're kind of the fox in the hen house. That's what you guys, the audience is going to learn when they hear my peers, is that we administrate trusts, okay? All sorts of complex trusts, right? For every purpose, from revocable living trust to retirement trust, which we're going to talk about a specific one, to estate planning trust, charitable trust. And so they all have complex assets in them. And so when we see what attorneys are doing, when we see what accountants are doing, we can see what the good ones are doing, and we can see the failures in other ones. And so again, we're learning about all this breadth and knowledge, and I absorb it like a sponge and saying, okay, this is an opportunity, and we need to share this with our other clients. Okay, again, as a resource. And then here's some epic failures. All right, and like there's three main case laws we're going to talk about with one of my attorney partners, a couple of my attorney partners will have one.
Well, let's do this, right? Because I want to get into this, and I want to make sure that we give people the punch that this podcast is going to have. Let's start with talking about what the goal of this podcast is for you. What is it you want to do here?
Yeah, I want to exploit the conversation, the real conversation about the exodus of California and the myths that are being perpetrated, whether by media or through social context. Okay, I don't mean to insult anybody, but there's a lot of lemmings out there, and they just follow and they hear, oh, I'm leaving because of taxes, and they just drink the Kool-Aid and go,
Yeah, but are they doing that? Are they doing it because they're disingenuous, or do you think they're doing it probably because they just don't know
they don't
about the
know.
resources?
They don't know. And if you can't find the resources, then you have to succumb and you default to, well, I guess if everybody else is leaving for this reason and I fit into that box, I should leave. And again, we're going to have conversations with people, some clients of ours that they make a lot of money. And we've had little conversations with, I think I need to leave. And I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you want to? No. Okay. Where would you go? I guess Texas. Do you want to go? No. I want to stay here. Okay. So what do we need to do to solve? What's the, that delta to get you to where you are satisfied and comfortable? And we get to those solutions. And I have clients that, again, were ready to pack their bags and ready to go somewhere, and they didn't really want to. And we're going to have them on a podcast. And they said, I'm okay now. I think I'm comfortable to stay, and I can digest this, and I feel comfortable paying this tax. And I know I'm protected from the knuckleheads out there, the plague of lawsuits. And so again, if we can get to providing these resources, there's just a mismatch with so many people out there, and the business community, what's built California, whether it's small or mid-size, and then you have the large ones that have left. Okay, well, what you may not know, there's almost as many applications for business licenses coming into California as there are leaving. Not quite as much, but it's pretty close.
How are you doing this? How are you? What are you? I don't know, for lack of a better way to say this, are you using some kind of advanced strategy? I don't hear a lot of people talking the way you talk, right? Okay, so what is it that you're doing, and that is making people go, "Hey, wait, I don't have to do that. I'm going to stay."
Well, we're breaking the norm template that the general advisor populace promulgates. What the CPAs here have an S corp, have an LLC for your real estate, and it passes through to you, and you're going to pay the tax, and it's painful. And there's a whole breadth we're going to talk about corporate structuring, okay, and the the mismanagement of entities, okay. We're going to talk about trust and why trusts have certain exemption rights, okay, on both tax and creditor that businesses and you as an individual don't have. And we're going to talk about that in the next podcast. What are exemption rights? They're federal, they're state, they're tax, okay, and they're creditor. Well, that's the matrix. And you don't get that without trust. Again, why do the wealthy use these things? So again, it's trying to get, what I'm trying to do is get people more educated and match up the higher end advisory is what it's going to take to empower clients to at least know that they have options. The problem now is they don't have the resources, so they don't have an option, and they hit the default button and they leave.
So what are the most critical issues that you think face people in the state now?
Well, regulatory issues, legislation, certainly. I'm going to have on an attorney that writes legislation for businesses throughout the state, a guy named Bill Porter, brilliant guy. On employment law and all those things. We're going to learn about those depths of things. But again, my team, what I deal with is I have asset protection attorneys and business attorneys and tax attorneys, and high-end CPAs, high net worth CPAs, mid-sized business owner CPAs. They understand the next layer of three-dimensional planning. Now, this is a great point to say, hey, this is not for the weak. Okay, if you're not going to invest in doing this, okay, you might as well pack your bags. Okay. It takes energy and want to be able to do this, and cost. But when you create that delta of substantial impact, your value proposition is the difference between your benefits and your cost. And if you pay nothing and you get slaughtered versus if you pay a nickel and you bring that risk level down a massive amount, you've created a huge delta. And all people need to do, everybody's a big boy and girl, and they can make decisions. They just need to have knowledge, education, and know what their true options are. The problem is no one has those options. It's crazy, Bill. I'm on a plane down to our office in Costa Mesa. Our office is up here in Roseville, but probably 75% of our business is down in SoCal. It's where all the action is. It's where all the craziness is. Yeah. We're super aggressive. We have 38-year-old kids making $5 million per year and stuff. And it's not just for those people. Okay. It's for, people making $1 million. You have to make $1 million in SoCal to survive. Okay. Which also means you need to keep your money to survive, right? Not pay half in taxes. But I'm on the plane and I'm looking down at all the little ants as I'm coming into, John Wayne Airport, and I'm going, God, every one of these people has a federal right as a U.S. citizen, okay, and a state right as a California resident, and they don't have any clue what those rights are. And again, I'm going to exploit them. Okay, some of them are 50-year-old laws that nobody knows about. Okay, and it's almost insulting, but when they get educated, the first thing someone's going to go is, that sounds too good to be true. And I'm going to say, well, great. Why don't you go ask every one of your existing advisors, and they can go look up all this stuff. Okay. And then the problem is you're going to ask them, well, why didn't you tell me about this? And so unless an advisor is willing to raise the bar on their abilities to protect their client, they're probably going to get nudged. Okay. And it's because, we've had some clients, most of them have outgrown their advisors. And so in California, there's this bell curve, and this bell curve gets to about, a small business owner gets to about this $10 million mark, growing to this $20 million mark to about 40. And what's happening in there is that growth curve is they have quickly outgrown their advisor capacity, and they can't bring the tools to them. And they not only commensurate, but exponential risk that they're incurring along the way. Okay. And it's from all perspectives, and any business owner will tell you they have unlimited risk. Now, risk is exactly your advocacy. Okay. If you can measure risk is actually one of the strongest things to help you with tax mitigation.
How do you mean? How do you mean that?
Yeah, it's a crazy concept.
Yeah.
So when you look at business risk, and then you have you have your trust that own your business entities, and your business entities own assets, and then we're tracking all the earnings that come through in all forms, active, passive, gain, and we're looking at those things. We're able to take the boxes, and we're able to use the risk to create risk reserves and deductible expenses and set aside dollars and buffer against taxation. Now, this is too much for this call. We're going to have specific, podcast in regards to this. Probably
To talk how to do that. To talk
yeah,
you through how to do
we're going to be doing some compare analysis, some before and after scenarios. Okay, but risk is actually. I'll give you an example. So, on one of the strategies that we used for one of our trusts, that the next podcast, California Private Retirement Trust. It's an exemption for every Californian. They don't know about it. Okay. And in there, we're able to measure the risk because the trust has an obligation to do something. And so I was talking to this attorney, and the attorney out of Texas, and I won't name his name yet. I want to have him on the podcast. And he used to be the chief counsel for the IRS and US Treasury. And his job then was basically to create what we call the dirty dozen list, the abusive tax strategies, and unwind, okay, and destroy people trying to evade taxes, right? And anybody that knows about this probably kind of heard about the dirty dozen, things like right now it's conservation easements, so forth and so on. Anyway, he left the service, and he and his wife went into private practice, and now they use their powers for good, not evil. I like to say that. Well, I was talking to him, and we actually got an actual underwriting on a case, and we were trying to measure the risk, and there was all sorts of risk for this business litigation, and loss of key client and supplier, and it just goes on forever. And I said, hey, so we want to insure against this, and so we want to get an actual certification from a carrier like Lloyd's of London. And he brings up this thing. He goes, oh yeah, he goes, you got kryptonite against the IRS. And I went, what? And I go, what do you mean? And he says, everything else is kind of subjective when you're doing investing and things like that. And we can attack that because we can argue subjective. But when you measure risk and you get third-party validation on risk, you disarm the IRS. Okay, they can't argue risk. And I go, wow, that's a hell of a concept. And this was about 4 or 5. It was pre-COVID, and I grabbed onto that idea. And again, when we go through some podcasts specifically on this topic, no one will be able to argue with me on risk. It's how do we use that? And it takes tactic and energy, okay, and smarts, and the right advisors should be able to execute on these things. Okay. But when you do it right, and it always takes administration, you have to have that backroom office. You can't just slam together, and everybody that's going to listen to this is going to know this. Even as mundane as a revocable living trust, which everybody should have, but many don't. Okay. But what happens is the legal profession, and they slap together the revocable living trust, and they use some type of template, and they fill in the blanks, and then they hand it to you. Well, they got to race off to their next deal because they're making money on a per deal basis, and they hand you that binder, and it's sitting on your shelf, and you go, well, I guess I kind of understand what it is, but I guarantee you 6 months from now you don't remember anything about that, and it spooks people. And so there has to be this continual re-education, and it's called administration. Okay, this reinforcement, assurance department, if you will. And the more complex you get, okay, the more T's and I's there are to do that, and the more you need that administration to make sure that everything is being validated, benchmarked, tracked, adjusted, reported properly. Okay, and again, our attorneys up front require and hire us to make sure that the implementation for trusts, okay, integrating with business entities are properly being done. Okay, so we even do the things for the business entities, the corporate minutes, the resolutions, LLCs, all this gore. And people says, oh, you only need to do it once. You need to do it for any transaction you're doing, all the way to the end, which is reporting, right? what are the trust tax returns? We do continuing education, Bill. I don't think we've ever talked about that with you guys, but we do continuing ed. We're approved for CLE and CPE, and we train attorneys and CPAs on these things. And why do we do that? Well, again, trying to get them out there to create this impact, this net of education, and we don't lose, because at the end of the day, always bubbling up as somebody that needs and wants to do these things, and the attorneys hire us, so we get the administration, and that's how we built our backs, or our company, on the backs of the legal and accounting professions. They've helped build this. We owe them that. And that's, again, when I look at, my hot list, I just started with 80. So, I mean, we have already got a couple of years worth of podcasts, but, again, I don't see it stopping. So, the one thing that we had to do is to get here is we struck some joint ventures that alleviated really our focus, or the energy it took for us to administrate. And then we implemented technology this year that works for an energy of 20 people. I mean, it streamlines and it tests and it tactically notifies and warns us where things are, what needs to be fixed, and all these things. So when we have that, it kind of frees me up to do what I really should be doing, which is educating people. And so that's hence another reason for the podcast, is now I get the luxury of going out and having fun. And I've had a blast this, really, since we implemented the technology, talking about it with the clients and having these conversations. That's what I want to do. I just want to.
Yeah. Well, I know from our conversations that, you can be a pretty holds barred kind of guy. You're great and straight up front with your opinions, and you clearly know what you're talking about. So that, hopefully I'm going to put words in your mouth, and you can take them out if you want to. The idea here is that you need to be proud that you're a Californian. This podcast is for people who live in California, who want to have some peace of mind. They want to feel good about being there. And you're going to show people how to do that, sometimes by disrupting the market, if I can. And you already mentioned this, but this is an interesting one to me. Warning advisors, or letting people know they should warn advisors. Their advisors should be proactive about this whole process.
They should. And again, maybe an advisor does, and there's kind of different classes. Okay.
Yeah.
There are some that are on the tail end of their career and they're done. Okay.
Right.
And we've met them, and they've literally, I've introduced CPAs and try to let them collaborate, and they go, no, you know what? This is just above my pay grade, and here. And we've literally had somebody say, here, take over. It's like, okay, well, that's fine. And that's okay. And then we have other ones that goes, yeah, I want to be proactive, but, and then you're going to get a lot like this, but I don't understand anything about trust. It kind of spooks me. I really want to help those people. If they want to know, we can act as that backroom office and get them educated to share the wealth. They don't need to be the pros, but we can collaborate. That's a power word, collaborate. Okay. It takes a team of people to be able to do this. And then you have the other ones that are super proactive. I spoke to a new attorney that we were supposed to get on together before COVID didn't happen. And then we just regrouped, and he's super proactive. And we both said to each other, man, I wish we really had connected, when we did, but we're connected. Okay. So we're doing training with him, and he's already sent us some good joint business. And by the way, this is not about trust CFO, trying to get business. We get the business. Okay. And we have the luxury of picking and choosing the clients we want. We also have the luxury of turning down the ones we want. There's a guy out there swimming around. He's called every one of our attorneys. I had a bunch of attorneys going, oh, he's going to engage me. A bunch of them saying the same guy's going to engage him. Well, I had to warn all the attorneys. He's shopping. And I told all of them that I know, he's told all of you he's going to engage you, and they all go, yeah. So those are the guys you watch out for. Okay, listen, I give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but until they prove otherwise. So, and it works both ways. Okay, the clients, the populace has to earn the advisor trust, as well as the advisor earning
Well, yeah, and that's part of what you're going to be doing for your listeners here. I think you've alluded to it a couple of times, but one of your goals here is to introduce top advisors and experts on this podcast, so the people who are listening are hearing it from the horse's mouth, as it
Yeah.
were.
Yep. Yeah. You're going to meet some very interesting characters that have in their own right great stories. I mean, I admire them. I guess I'll say that. And I respect them. I've become good friends. And again, I feel I'm totally blessed with some of these guys at a caliber that I never thought I would be at, and we're going to talk about failures too. We're going to talk about things that we didn't expect. I still to this day have been caught off guard on certain things. Like, man, I didn't even think about that. So this is a big chess game. I love chess. And damn it, my son the other day beat me for the first time in chess, and I'm pretty pissed about it. Yeah.
Good,
Yeah.
good, good.
Yeah. So Ryan works for the company, and Ryan, okay, is the newbie to the company, understanding trust administration, probably knows more than a lot of attorneys that have spent 4 years in law school. And it's just what you do. All we do is administration. It's a mass amount of crossing T's and dotting I's. And if you looked at the laundry list, it would look like Kris Kringle's, Christmas list for naughty and nice. But again, we don't want people to have to do that stuff. Our clients should be focused in. I talked to the last engagement we had yesterday. Cold called us, said, I'm interested. We said, listen, we're going to need to push this off to next year. We don't have enough runway, but fantastic client opportunity. And so we need to invest in that education curve. I don't know if I got off topic. So anyways.
No, it's not off topic, because the point that I want to make here, so the people who are listening to this podcast understand what to expect. You are going to be bringing in attorneys. You're going to be bringing in CPAs. You're going to bring tax advisors. You're going to be bringing in folks in private equity, investment banking, and financing to talk about the resources that are available to them that they may not know about. You, in essence, are their guide. You are the man, I guess, alerting them to strategies that a lot of people, it sounds like, didn't even know existed.
Well, it's just, again, because of where you are. And I'll kind of rattle some cages now to excite people. I always ask people, how come it is that the mortgage markets are 7 or 8%, and business loans are at 12, and credit cards are at 25, and why is it that I can get 2.5% interest only loans with trusts? And no one's going to answer the question until I give them the answer. That's what we have right now.
I do want to know the answer to that question, by the way.
I'll give you another one. Okay. Part of my history is back in 2004, I was asked to be on the board for Commercial Lending Bank, Community First Bank up here in Roseville, since sold the First Foundation Bank. So sat on the loan committees, the ALCO asset liability committees and whatnot. And so basically understand the banking dynamic with trust. Well, lo and behold, where we're at today, you go to our website. Well, our trusts offer 5.24%. Okay, totally liquid, no fees, digital banking for our trusts. Well, you go into Wall Street Journal, Interactive Brokers promotes 4.85%, and they compare it to the Bank of America's on how awesome they are. Well, I have a higher rate than they do. Not only that, nobody understands trust. Well, basic trusts that we manage have multiple FDIC $250,000 protection. Mm-hmm. In some of our trusts, we're able to pull up to 100 million in FDIC protection through pooled accounts. You can only do that to the trust accounts. Okay. So it's just crazy that, again, there's this whole new world over there. I just want to, again, kind of rattle cages with people that and we're gonna exploit this. How does this work? Why did this happen? Why do these people have access to this? Okay. And it's because there's a limited amount of people playing in the space and they can't get to everybody. That's the job with California Wealth Warriors. We're going to fight to try to get these tools in your hands, and then you can decide if you want to fight to stay here. But I ain't leaving. And again, hopefully my my golf game will free up in front of me now. So
There you go. Well, no, you're digging in. So the goal here, if I can be so bold, is you want to keep productive Californians in California, and the grandiose goal to save the state, as it were.
yes, I think the state I think the state is going to fight for itself. I saw something 2 days ago, and I don't remember what news station it was on, and said, "Hey, there's been a decline in crime in San Francisco." And I said, "Yeah, right on. Okay, now we're going the right direction, right?"
We're headed the right way.
Yeah, and there's other things, and and I know the politics are going on, and I know Gavin Newsom gets a ton of shit, but something else they don't know. He was responsible, and he upped the homestead exemption in California a few years back. It was a miserable 175,000. Now it's index. I think it's 687,000 or something.
Mm.
Again, that's like throwing the deck chair off the Titanic. You ain't going to save the ship because having a house in Marin or Newport isn't even close. There's other trust strategies that we do, but you know what? I mean, he's contributed to that level. I would love to. He lives here in town. I'd love to have that cat on here and get his perspective for saving. Not political, okay? Financial and economical, but we'll see. We'll see how that might work out.
Well, that's great. So let's wrap this episode up. And I want to do that by teasing what comes next. What can people expect to hear in your second podcast?
Yeah. So before we get to introducing, our power partners, our alliances, joint venture partners, we need to set the stage. So the next podcast is we're going to talk about the rights of California. So we're going to go down the list of what are called exemptions. Okay. And I'm going to explain that. I'll tease you with California has a complex resident exemption system. Okay. Every state has an exemption, right? Homestead exemption, Texas, unlimited, Florida, homestead exemption, unlimited up to a quarter acre. Oh, interesting. Why did O.J. Simpson have a house in Florida and it was under a quarter acre? Right. So all these things, okay, that we're going to get into every asset and what these rights are, because the thing you need to do is the Californians need to claim these rights, and that's what they don't do. They forfeit them until such time as they claim them, and if they get sued, it's too late. The house is on fire. You can't buy fire insurance, right? So that's what we're going to cover, and then we're going to set the stage. The foundation next podcast is going to surround about with the core concept for Californians, which is their right for retirement. It's called a California Private Retirement Plan. We're the largest administrator for those plans in the state of California. Again, we're kind of that fox in the hen house, and because we see everything that goes in and out of these things, and then we're going to discuss how that as a foundation accentuates in other integrated planning. So that's what we can expect next podcast in detail. And that's going to really educate people and get their brain, cranking, have them start thinking about their rights. Again, I'd love every one of those little ants below that plane to claim their rights. Whether they do so or not, it's up to them.
I suspect, Ray, you may have gotten some people interested with just this conversation today. I'm looking forward to these conversations, because I don't know the first thing about the California private retirement plan, and you've made me, I don't live in California, you've made me want to go look it up so to see what the deal is. I do have friends who live there, however, so I might want to call them and tell them about it. So
I'll leave with this. The California Private Retirement Plan, we've had in the last 5 years, probably 10 clients move into California to secure themselves against lawsuits because the value of that outweighed the tax delta from the states. When have you heard the last time that somebody wanted to move into California? Right?
Never, because all the stories I hear about people leaving California.
So that's going to be the kind of the kickoff for the next podcast, and I'm excited to do it. And again, we'll have some other people chime in, and then really we're going to have a lot of fun when we have my colleagues in, and they're all blast, by the way. They're all funnier than heck, and we're probably going to be busting each other's chops pretty good, and having fun along the way. So that's what you got to do. I mean, hard work, and you got to have fun along the way. So, Bill,
hard work's made a lot easier if you're having fun.
Yeah, appreciate you as my trusted steed, and keeping me on my OCD brain in focus. So we're gonna have a blast together. So thank you for the opportunity with Proud Mouth. Tell the boys I said hi. And anything else that we need to do to wrap up?
Yeah, one more thing, because this is the first podcast. So odds are there are people listening who don't want to miss another podcast. And that's easy. All they have to do is hit the subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button. That way you don't ever miss another episode of this podcast. And we're also would suggest, maybe if you like this, you find it interesting and useful, why don't you rate this podcast and share it with other people? Help spread the word about what Ray is trying to do in terms of raising awareness within California and trying to save the state, as it were, and maybe even convincing a few of you to move to the state of California if he's successful. On behalf of Ray and everybody at Trust CFO, I'm Bill Tucker. I'm reminding you to go out right now and live your best life today. Thanks.